Okay, let's dive into this explainer. We are looking at a truly profound economic paradox today. Pakistan, it's a nuclear-armed power, right? It's got immense strategic importance and just undeniable geographic potential. And yet, it constantly seems to be teetering right on the edge of a financial crisis. So, how does a nation with so many foundational advantages continually find itself in this spot? Well, let's unpack it.
But to really understand these big macroeconomic crises, we kind of have to ground ourselves right at the kitchen table. Imagine waking up every single morning to find out that the absolute basics, we're talking flour for your bread, cooking oil, the electricity powering your lights, even essential medicines, they've all just gone up in price. Again. Meanwhile, your monthly salary, it hasn't budged a single inch. Suddenly, every single trip to the market becomes this stressful mathematical exercise. You're seeing businesses in your neighborhood close their doors and secure jobs are just disappearing. This isn't some theoretical economic model. This is the harsh daily reality that millions of families in Pakistan have been facing over recent years.
And we really need to emphasize this, we are not talking about a small or isolated economy here. Just look at this number, over 240 million people. That makes Pakistan the fifth most populous country on Earth. To put that into perspective, that's larger than the populations of the UK, France, and Germany combined. So when an economy of this massive scale falters, the human stakes are just staggering. We're talking about hundreds of millions of lives, a huge young workforce, and a consumer market that honestly, theoretically, should be a massive engine for explosive economic growth.
So, to make sense of all this, we're going to follow a clear cascade today. First, a nation at the brink. 2, the trade deficit trap. 3, the cycle of debt. 4, a perfect storm. And finally, 5, the path to recovery.
All right, Section 1, a nation at the brink, potential versus reality. And this brilliantly illustrates that core paradox we mentioned. On paper, you literally have the blueprint for prosperity. You've got fertile agricultural land, a highly strategic geographic crossroads that connects South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, plus this massive, really energetic young workforce. But then you look at the reality, and it's such a stark contrast. Widespread business closures, disappearing jobs, and crippling inflation. It begs the question, why exactly isn't this amazing potential translating into reality?
Which brings us to Section 2, the trade deficit trap, the structural flaw.
Okay, so to keep the country running, Pakistan essentially has to import massive amounts of stuff: petroleum, heavy machinery, industrial equipment, chemicals, edible oil. But to buy all these heavy imports on the global market, they need foreign currencies, specifically US dollars. The catch? The ways Pakistan actually earns those dollars are pretty limited. They primarily export textiles, garments, rice, sports goods, and surgical instruments. Now, these are definitely important industries, don't get me wrong, but the value of what they are selling globally is just vastly overshadowed by the sheer cost of what they're forced to buy.
And that leads us straight into the concept of a trade deficit. In simple terms, it's that financial imbalance when a country consistently spends more foreign currency on imports than it actually earns back from its exports. Think of it like a bank account, where more money goes out than comes in. Years and years of this continuous imbalance slowly but surely drained Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves. It got to a point where those reserves could barely cover a few weeks' worth of essential imports, which naturally sparked these intense, very real fears of a total balance of payments crisis.
Let's move to Section 3 and see how this builds. The cycle of debt. Falling dominoes.
So this whole situation builds into a pretty brutal cycle. Look at Step 1. When those foreign reserves fall dangerously low, the country literally cannot pay for imported fuel or medicine. Step 2. To avoid a catastrophic default, the government has to scramble and seek an emergency bailout loan from international lenders, like the IMF. But, and here's Step 3, these lifelines never come for free. They come with really strict conditions attached. We're talking heavy tax hikes, subsidies, and currency depreciation. And while economists will argue, rightly so, that this is necessary medicine to balance the books long term, Step 4 is the immediate result, a severe, painful spike in the cost of living for everyday citizens.
And unfortunately, the cycle just doesn't stop there. Because of decades of borrowing from both domestic and international sources, this massive mountain of public debt has piled up. Today, just the debt repayments and the interest alone consume a disproportionate chunk of the government's annual budget. Think about what that actually means. Every single rupee spent servicing that old debt is a rupee pulled directly away from building schools, upgrading hospitals, or fixing roads. It creates this really tragic loop where the government actually has to borrow even more money just to pay the interest on the money it already owes. It's wild.
Section 4. A perfect storm. compounding crises.
So, take all those structural flaws we just talked about, and then throw in constant internal and external shocks. When the rupee loses value against the US dollar, imported fuel and fertilizer instantly become vastly more expensive, which obviously drives up inflation. Meanwhile, you've got frequent energy shortages and sky-high electricity tariffs literally forcing factories to lay off workers. Add in political instability, which, tends to scare off local and foreign investment, alongside notoriously low tax collection from a huge informal economy. The result? Rampant youth unemployment. You've got millions of young people entering the workforce every single year, and there are just no jobs waiting for them.
Now, what's really interesting and devastating about this slide is that on top of everything else, you have these completely unpredictable external shocks. Take the 2022 floods. This wasn't just a heartbreaking humanitarian tragedy, it was an absolute economic sledgehammer. It caused tens of billions of dollars in economic damage. It wiped out vital infrastructure, displaced millions of people, and submerged the very farmland that the country's massive agricultural sector relies on. It really proves how climate change is acting as an unbearable, compounding pressure on an already incredibly fragile national budget.
Finally, Section 5, the path to recovery, rebuilding the economy.
Now, despite all these severe hardships, it's really important to note that Pakistan actually retains an incredibly strong foundation to rebuild upon. Look at the bright spots here. It boasts one of South Asia's absolute largest textile industries, plus an agricultural sector that employs millions and has huge modernization potential. Then there's the rapidly growing information technology sector, driven by a super tech-savvy generation. And we can't forget the billions of dollars in remittances flowing in every year from fiercely loyal overseas Pakistanis. That is a vital economic lifeline. But leveraging these core strengths, that's going to require painful, consistent structural reforms. Things like widening the tax net, diversifying exports way beyond just textiles, and maintaining the kind of political stability that investors demand.
So, the crucial point is this. The story of Pakistan's economy is this incredibly complex web of structural challenges, political dynamics, and harsh external shocks. But the ultimate question remains, can Pakistan transform this severe crisis into a genuine opportunity for lasting reform and sustainable growth? Can domestic policy decisions and improved governance finally break that cycle of debt and reshape the future of South Asia? It's a massive challenge for sure. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you next time.